Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by John Donovan and Longhorn Wealth Management Group. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined every day by Jerry Hamilton. And today we got Marcus Myers filling in for Bobby. He's a little under the weather, so hopefully he gets feeling better soon. And tell us where you're checking in from this morning, what you're drinking, get those questions in. We'll get to those here in a little bit. But first, guys, I want to open with recruiting. We're going to get to the NFL draft. We'll recap all that stuff here in a little bit. But we've had some people asking about recruiting. So let's start there this morning, Jerry.
Yeah, look, Texas coaches will be on the road again. They made some stops. All these guys have limited number of days. So they began some work on the road last week. They'll be on the road through probably mid-May is kind of what I'm thinking in terms of days they have on the road. One new 2027 offer went out, but it's more a lot of 2028 offers went out, which for those, I'm waiting now to see who shows up on campus in June, right, and see where these things go. But as far as, 27 recruiting, a lot of people asked about Kennedy Brown, his commitment to A&M. Texas got him on campus once, never really got an official visit there. I think that, all these things have to mix it. They have to match up for a staff and a player. And, I think Texas liked Kennedy Brown. He also is coming off the Liz Frank foot injury. So I actually think this kid was smart to get his NIL deal and get going down the road because he's had a couple injuries in his past there, and one cost him a lot of last season. But, look, I think Texas is after the same guys on the offensive line they were. Now, we'll see what happens here in the next 24 hours with one of those potential targets. We'll see there. Kamara, Brian Swanson, they're still the top. Those are the tackles that Texas is going after. That's nice. And we'll see what happens. Kamara was at Oregon over the weekend, and A&M's in it. Texas is in it. I think it'll be one of those three more than likely. Now, SMU can definitely give it a swing. I'll say that. They can definitely give it a swing. But I think the official visit process for Kamara will be big there. Brian Swanson, same thing. And for the majority of these guys, it's going to be the official visits through June that are going to decide it. I want to take a look at the corners, the corner position, because it's so strong in state. Dylan McGee is a guy that's not talked about very much, but he was on campus April 11th, and Texas loves this guy. Montre Jackson out of Garland Lakeview, Dylan McGee out of Red Oak, Trenton Blaylock out of Atascocita, who's put up the big-time track times. I think going into this spring evaluation period, these three corners in state are probably the three highest-ranked guys outside of John Meredith. So if I don't mention Meredith, that's a given, right? He's a five-star corner, and he's the number one guy. But Texas wants two or three corners, maybe three in this class. So where is that going to come from? Well, it's really deep in state at corner. I like this guy a lot as a pure athlete. Really good. He's running the 10.7, 10.8 range in track. He's a pretty natural playmaker. He's hooped some in the past. Multisport guys, which we're going to bring up later on, Marcus, is every year after the NFL draft, it talks about the percentage of guys who are multi-sport guys. But Dylan McGee's he's a guy that, because John Meredith's ranked so high and there's some other guys in the state, there's so many corners. I think sometimes names get they fly under the radar, aren't talked about enough. That's a really good football player. I think this is one of these guys that has a chance to be really good. So Dylan McGee, wanted to bring him up today. Will officially visit Texas in June, along with, and that's June 19th weekend, which will be very interesting. Actually, he's not June 9th, but June 9th, 19th weekend is going to be a big one for corners. Montre Jackson's coming in the 5th through 7th, on the 12th through 14th. So those corner spots are going to be very interesting. I'm also interested to see how, when these coaches get out this spring, how, if any, that cornerback kind of board shakes out. Because there's Cameron Robertson as well inside the state of Texas, who's not talked about, but is a really talented player. And when you're looking at signing two or probably three, Blank Jenkins from Katy Tompkins will be in the 12th through 14th as well. When you have that many in-state corners, how's it all going to work out? How's this all going to shuffle out when Texas goes out and watches these guys in the spring? Because, for instance, if you kind of add up days, Will Muschamp can only have 5 or 6 days left on the road because of how many he took in January to go see guys when he was first hired. So how are you going to spread out those days if you're the D coordinator at Texas and you love to make those in-person evaluations and some decisions are going to be made. Probably means you're going to be in Houston 1 or 2 days, Dallas 1 or 2 days, maybe a day in Atlanta, maybe a day either in probably in Cali because a D lineman they're recruiting. So it's going to be interesting to see how this, when then Orfe has his days, obviously, in Gideon at safety, but how this all shakes out from a corner's position, because we've been saying this is a big position of need. They're bringing in double-digit official visitors in the secondary. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. But we wanted to bring Dylan McGee's name up because I think he's kind of being not talked about enough for a guy who's really talented. And SMU's putting up a fight on all these DFW guys. They're like Isaiah Udom, the really good safety out of Dallas, South Oak Cliff. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out because SMU's trying to throw themselves in as more of a player from an NIL perspective. But something we'll be monitoring here. And official visits are what now? 5 weeks away? A month. They're really a month away for like Georgia, who has the last weekend in May. Some schools that have big official visit weekends last weekend in May. Texas is June 5th through 7th. So we're 5 weeks out right now.
All right, guys. I'm going to get to some recruiting questions here in just a second as well. But first, I need to tell everyone this morning about our sponsor, and that's Longhorn Wealth Management Group. We'd like to thank John, president of Longhorn Wealth Management Group. John is a proud Texas Ex's Life member who truly bleeds burnt orange. His wife and 6 siblings are all UT grads as well, so it was his family passion for UT that led John to brand his firm Longhorn Wealth Management Group and dedicate it to providing investment, retirement, insurance, and estate planning services to Longhorn families and fans across the nation, which John has been doing for over 30 years. And John was proud to have Longhorn Wealth Management Group recognized last Friday night in Austin at the Texas Ex's 2026 Longhorn 100 Gala. And he was thrilled when it was announced that Longhorn Wealth was the 32nd fastest growing company in the world, either founded, owned, or led by a Longhorn. So to celebrate this great accomplishment and recognition from Texas Ex's, John wants to offer every member of the OTF family a free private consultation via Zoom, phone, or in person to allow John to show you how working with a certified financial planner like John can help you maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and ensure your legacy. So go schedule your free private financial consultation. Just call the Longhorn Wealth team at 972-707-4900 or schedule online at longhornwealth.net. And big congratulations. Awesome recognition there for John. So appreciate his support each and every Monday right here on Coffee and Football. Okay, guys, we have a question that I wanted to get to real quick since you mentioned him, Jerry. Is Ismail Kamara a Tyler Atkinson level need to get?
For me, and I think he's tremendous. I'm not going to go there. Look, I think when you start to get to that level guy, you're talking about a Colin Simmons who is, and he's above even Atkinson. Like those must-get guys are different to me. That's if Colin Simmons is coming out of Duncanville, Texas is trying to do their best to take over DFW. Colin Simmons had said he was always going to play in the SEC. So you knew if Colin Simmons didn't go to Texas, he was going to LSU or he was going to Georgia or Florida. It was pretty much it was probably LSU, but one of those 4 schools. You knew he was going to the SEC. He said it when he was a sophomore the first time I interviewed him. It was like, wow, this guy knows where he's going. There's no doubt. And Oregon, everybody tried to come in and change it, but that was an impactful recruitment for many ways, not just because of the player he was, but kind of what it represented in recruiting. I don't really see one of those guys. I think, people could say John Meredith could be that guy.
Yeah.
Texas, Alabama, A&M, and then Ohio State, who's done damage in Texas before. So I think if there was somebody in this class that was close to that in-state, it's John Meredith, and he's a premium position corner guy. Look, in the last one that was that level, Devin Sanchez is at Ohio State, Marcus. So I think if I was looking at a guy in-state this year, that's the one I would lean to. Out of state, obviously, it's Eastern roll-up because you've had him committed so long. And if he goes elsewhere, it's going to be LSU or Florida.
Yeah, I think I like Meredith just in the sense, Jerry, the same you were kind of discussing. He has that same kind of body type of the type of corners that I think, really thrive under Muschamp system. So that was where I was leaning as well. And then, we've also seen that, for, some of these linemen, it can be a little more challenging. And at times, nowadays, it seems like it's almost easier to, make sure you get a proven one out of the portal versus, having to spend the time to cultivate them. So Meredith was probably going to be where I was leaning on that one as well.
Yeah. And I want to add to that point, I think from an NIL perspective right now, offensive line is the toughest ones to make decisions on, because you're not likely getting the ROI from an NIL standpoint in year one under those guys. And for the guys that are really high up there, like Miami has to start Jackson Cantwell this year. I mean, reports already got 2.5. You gonna sit that guy? I mean, Miami alums would be like, hey man, what's our ROI here? It's like when somebody's up at that level. So I think those are those high level guys, depending on what they want in their situation and what the thought process around those guys. I think those are very tough decisions for colleges right now. Those high dollar NIL offensive linemen coming out of high school, because you certainly are not many times you're going to get your ROI on those guys in year one, unless there's great player, a Kelvin Banks level player. And how many of those guys are there actually at 18 years old?
Well, let's switch gears here. Take a look at the NFL draft. Obviously, it wrapped up over the weekend. And guys, we had 6 Longhorns in this draft. The first one coming from Anthony Hill Jr. in round 2, pick 60, going to the Titans, followed by Malik Muhammad going around 4 to the Bears. Trey Moore went 6 picks after him with pick 130 to the Dolphins. Michael Taft, round 5 to the Dolphins. DJ Campbell, round 6 to the Dolphins. Starting to notice a little trend here. And then finally, Jack Endries goes round 7 to the Bengals. Marcus, we'll start with you. Your thoughts on Texas and the draft?
Yeah, man, it's been kind of interesting to watch some of the conversation on social media, especially from some other fan bases, right? Even though like Texas is still, I think, at the top or tied at the top for the last, 3 years or so, and certainly has improved, dramatically over Sark's run. But some, pretty good landing spots for a number of the guys. I imagine, for the 3 going to Miami, that's got to be pretty cool, joining Quinn there and just having some familiarity. But all in all, I think, some of the guys I certainly would have expected to go higher. That in itself may be part of the PK conversation when you even look at an Anthony Hill Jr., but he's still going to make some pretty nice jack there. So I know there's been even some conversation of, well, he should have come back. I don't think so. Jerry, this probably better than I, but I think he'll probably have a $4 or $5 million signing.
Oh yeah.
Still made the right choice. It just, ultimately, I think what happened, from the field this past year didn't get him near as high as what I think his talent will ultimately end up being. So, but, happy for all the young men as well as the ones that were able to, secure some spots as UDFAs.
Yeah. I mean, the on Anthony Hill, for the people who say, oh, he should have come back. He's $5 million signing bonus, $4 million year one. Because of where he's drafted and how highly he's thought of, even if he got cut after 2 years at the Titans, he'll have made $13 million. And somebody else will sign him. He's going to make, I would say, no less than $18, $19 million if he ended up being a semi-NFL draft bust. So I 100% think he made the correct decision. You can even go down to pick 124 where Manny Muhammad was. And look, he's almost 1.2 is the salary. And with the signing bonus, I mean, he's probably going to be 3 in year one. So I think, look, if you're in the first round is totally different, but because the NFL, what they've done through their CBA, Marcus, is they've kept up with the times. I think their rookie salaries, the NBA is encountering something totally different in NIL than the NFL is. The NFL's losing some lower round guys, but if you're in rounds 1, 2, or 3, it's hard to sit there and see what these guys are making and say, oh, you should have stayed. Because the reality is they're living out their dream and they are going to make more than what would they have made by staying one more year. That's totally different than these lower round guys to me. So even if you're Manny Muhammad and you're looking at that signing bonus, I mean, you're looking at 3 in year 1, and your year 2, it keeps going up and up and up a little bit in increments, right? I mean, those deals at the 4th round, 124th pick, that total deal's probably worth 7.5. I mean, so that once you get down past that, I think that's where the NFL is losing the most guys to NIL that are coming back, which is totally understandable at that point. But if you're a first, second, or third round guy, if you just look at the salary scales, man, it doesn't make sense to me to really come back, and especially if you're looked at as your ceiling isn't much higher than where you're at now. I mean, the Marcus, the reality is we can all say Anthony Hill, if he'd have come back, he could have been a first round pick next year. That's just people saying that. That may not actually be the reality of the way the NFL is looking at Anthony Hill, because they may say, look, man, you need to be a downhill player. That's where you're going to be best. That is your strength as a player. That is not really going to change. You're not going to be a coverage linebacker. So you kind of are who you are. I don't know if you agree with that, Marcus, but that's where I come out on some of these guys.
Well, the thought I have even more on Ant is, even if you were to say he was going to come back, well, next year's draft class is loaded. So you're going to have, the offensive guys are going to be pushed up even further. Whoever else emerges that we don't already know about. So it's likely he's probably going to end up kind of in the same spot. At least this way, he, goes ahead and gets his money, as well as, starts that clock for his next, contract, which is where he'll really make his money. So, I think it's one of those deals where, I think these young men are excited, to be in the NFL and certainly have something to prove, especially in instances where they feel like they should have gone much higher.
One of the big topics, Marcus, after the NFL draft, during and after all the time, is about, the talent on teams, right? Oh, how many players drafted? That team underachieved due to, if you look at NFL draft picks, I mean, sometimes that's kind of lumped in. Yeah. But, one thing I'm going to say about the draft, because you see so much stuff on social media, the opinions and such. The one thing I'm going to say about the NFL draft is, if there's anybody say, oh, well, Texas really didn't have that much talent this year. Ole Miss made the national semifinals with 2 NFL draft picks. I'm always going to say it's more than just about talent. I mean, Ole Miss had 2 guys. Now, Ole Miss had some younger guys like Texas did, but they had 2 guys drafted and made the college football semifinal. That's probably, if you look at the BCS and the 14 playoff, that's the least considerably of any team that made a semifinal. South Carolina and Kentucky had more NFL draft picks this weekend than Ole Miss did. So there's what Ole Miss did? They went from 118th and 120th in penalties the prior 2 years to 54th last year. They made a dramatic jump in discipline of play. Dramatic jump in discipline of play. And I'm going to put something on ontexasfootball.com about that after the show. I just got caught up this morning on the phone. But just something that I think that's worth a discussion is the talent gives you the margin for error, Marcus, but it doesn't guarantee anything. And we saw that because Indiana had 8 draft picks. There was 7 teams that had more than them this year. And Ohio State, has more 1 through 85 roster talent than Indiana has. They didn't win the title. But I just, that discussion's always interesting, especially if you dig into it and you say, hold on, Ole Miss had 2 guys drafted and went to the national semifinals. So it's always more than just about the talent. Talent gives you a bigger margin for error.
And we had somebody asking about undrafted free agents. So I made a list of those guys, 7 of them in total. Gilbo goes to the Panthers, Burke to the Ravens, Brevard to the Chiefs, Caldwell to the Rams, Shaw to the Ravens, Shipley to the Saints, and Boomeister to the 49ers, fellas.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Ethan Burke, I like that for Ethan Burke. I actually like – Rod was talking about that with San Francisco 49ers. He likes that for Boomeister, gives him a chance there. I like that for Ethan Burke going to the Ravens. I think solid organization. Matthew Caldwell to the Rams. Not like he's expected to make a roster anyways, but can you make the taxi squad or whatever you want to call it? Because obviously the Rams are set at quarterback. I mean, they drafted Simpson, even though McVay hated it. So now they have Stafford, Stetson Bennett, and Simpson. So, I mean, they're pretty much done, right? So you're going into a situation knowing you're not going to make the team. But what that can do for a quarterback is, if he performs well, still doesn't have a chance to actually make the team, they could keep him around, or McVay could tell one of his buddies, hey, man, this guy ain't here for us. He's not going to make our team, but you might want to take a look at him, because that does happen.
I like this comment. Of course, we talked about it on Friday, but Tyler says Caldwell was the only quarterback McVay was happy about.
Had you ever seen anything like that, Marcus? Like a head coach visibly that upset?
I'm trying to think. I thought there was one a few years back, but you always have recency bias, so of course I can't remember it. And then he had to try to kind of clean it up and say, when he did his availability or whatever, like, am I upset now or something like that? But it was an interesting choice for sure. I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe the thought is just they're not going to be drafting that high for a while, so go ahead and grab a guy that they think has some talent. But I'm sure he maybe would have rather used that pick a bit differently if he had the choice.
And Jerry wants to know, what are y'all's thoughts on Burke going undrafted?
I think it just kind of comes down to like body types and what different coaches like. It is certainly no indictment against his production in college, but we've seen a number of times before that production doesn't necessarily always guarantee it. And then on the flip side, the lack of it, sometimes they, just fall in love with certain traits. But I do like the fact that an organization like the Ravens is one that took him. And, I haven't looked at their depth chart or anything to see, who all he would need to go up against. But if there's somebody I had to place a chip on, to find his way in the NFL, Ethan Burke would certainly be one of those guys.
Yeah, I agree. I think, look, when Ethan walks out onto a field, he doesn't fit the physical looking mold of a lot of guys at his position. He's just not built like that. And some people have compared him to Aiden Hutchinson. Aiden Hutchinson is built like those guys are. He just doesn't have that natural body type. So he's up against it from that perspective. So then the other thing, how you overcome that, there's two ways you overcome it. And number one is your play on the field, right? But almost more importantly than that, leading into a draft, is your testing. Like if you test off the charts, people will be like, okay, there's more than meets the eye here. But if you don't test off the charts, then all these guys are doing is Marcus is looking for warts. That's all they're doing, right? Remember, Derek Johnson could play physical enough. KD couldn't bench 100. I'll always say that because it's two of the funniest things of all time. But KD couldn't bench 185 pounds. So, what does that mean? Nothing for a 6'10" guy who can shoot the ball from everywhere and score over everybody. And like Derek Johnson, well, can he play against the run physically on the inside? I mean, come on, man. What are we talking about here? So all these guys are doing is looking for warts. So how many warts can they find? Well, I think with Ethan, now he's going to have to get on the field and overcome what those guys have hitting him on. And I'm not saying it's right, but that's just the process. And if the only way you overcome when you walk out and they say, well, that's not normal, that's not the body type of the guys that we draft and we have in the league, is to go test off the charts. And if you don't test off the charts, then it comes down, you got to get to camp and go play. You got to prove them wrong.
Yep. And he'll get that chance, right?
Yep. And he went to a good organization. Solid.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, he went to the Ravens, so I'm thankful that. But then again, somebody else went to the Ravens, so I'm not really sure what they're doing with them.
Pavia to the Ravens, and then the power slap in a couple of years.
Yeah, I don't think they're looking at him as a Lamar replacement down the line.
No.
Yeah, no. All right, guys. Well, one of my favorite things that we look at every year when it comes to the NFL, or when the NFL draft concludes, I guess I should say, is the multi-sport athlete percentage in the draft. And we've done this the last 2 or 3 years here on Coffee and Football. And I got it today in a nice, pretty little graphic here. Nearly 88% of players invited to the recent NFL scouting combine, including the 2026 class, were multi-sport athletes in high school. And, going back over the past couple of years, 88%, like I said, this year, 90% last year, which was, since COVID, I guess the highest, 88% in 24, 89% in 23. But as you can see, consistently between 87 to 90%, guys. Y'all's thoughts on multi-sport athletes when it comes to going to the draft?
Yeah, I mean, I've never really understood anybody's argument for kids specializing early. I don't. Most of the guys I know, most of the guys I played on teams with, always played multiple sports. I played, plenty of sports, growing up, and I don't think I really kind of specialized until my senior year. And even then, after football season, I still played basketball. So I think it just does wonders for you. And anytime that parents, ever kind of ask me my thoughts on it, I always, encourage them to keep their kids in as many things as possible. And then, if one kind of naturally emerges as the go-to, so to speak, then, maybe at the end of their, high school career, you whittle it down a little bit. But I don't really see the argument for the other side of it, if I'm honest.
I think this is such an interesting topic now, because I 100% believe in multiple sports. Like, I think if you think basketball wasn't big on Trevor Gooseby's footwork, his hip flexibility and reactionary quickness and body quickness, like, I think for big guys, basketball is incredible for them, because it's up and down constantly, right? There's no 25 seconds in between plays here, man. You're up and down. You're up and down. You're having to react with body quickness and reactive quickness to so many things in your peripheral. I think basketball is a great second sport for football players. I always have. And obviously for your skill guys, track, right? And I think quarterbacks are so interesting now because, these guys are starting specialized training at 11, 12 years old. Now, I think it's hugely been like, we had Jarrett Stidham on the show, Blake, and I asked him about playing basketball and how important that was for him. I think the other thing is think about it from an athletics only standpoint, which I think basketball's hugely beneficial for football guys, especially the bigger guys. Now they'll drop some weight, but they'll have to get it back. But it's so good for just reactive quickness, natural quickness, body quickness, ankle flexion, all those things when you're out of football season. I think that helps you more than training does. With quarterbacks, they've really gotten specialized at a young age. And I think when a kid looks like he has a chance to be a really good quarterback, I think he is steered into that specialization. The other thing I love about multiple sports, Marcus, is let's take Arch Manning, for instance, because it was very similar to Jarrett Stidham, right? Jarrett Stidham was the best football player, one of the top quarterbacks in the country at his school, right? But on the basketball court, he was like the 6th or 7th man. Arch Manning was very similar at Isidore. So what do you learn to do? You're a leader on Friday night, and then you're a teammate in the basketball season, because you're not going to be the leader of that team at that standpoint. So I think it's more than just the athletics part of it for guys, especially at a young age. You learn to be a leader. You learn to be a teammate. You watch other people lead. That helps you lead, right? And you have to fit in as a role player in some instances on a team. Not everybody's great in all their sports. So you can be the best on Friday night, and then December through early March, you can be a key piece of a team. And I think that helps growth of athlete more than it'll ever be talked about, because one Friday nights can be kind of easy if you're really good. You move to a sport where you're the 6th or 7th man, it's not as easy.
You nailed that one, Jerry.
The only adversity you face. Like, I watched Vince Young play basketball in high school. I went out to I believe it was Del Mar. I can't remember where it was. I watched him a couple times. And basketball, even though he was a D1 level basketball player, it wasn't as easy as it was for football for him. Yeah. Like, he would get in foul trouble and sit on and I was at a game where he got in foul trouble and sat on the bench and that was the most adversity he would face. He wasn't facing much adversity until late in the high school playoffs at Lamar. He was just Madison. He was too good. So where was his adversity going to come from? It was going to come from his secondary sport, which he was still really talented. But Lawrence Roberts was a better player in the gym that night than he was. And Lawrence Roberts got after him a little bit, and he was in foul trouble. I believe it was Lawrence Roberts, and he got in foul trouble. Well, that's the most adversity some guys will face that are great athletes. So I think it's invaluable all around for guys, not just athletically, but the mental side of it too, Marcus, because you got to be put in adverse situations. And sometimes you're just not if you're the best football player on the field very often.
Yeah, I mean, and all of it, even the district I was in, when I was in high school. Granted, we switched, but at one point I was in the same district as Travis and Johnston, right? Like by halftime, I wasn't really playing much. But then when I would get to the spring and have to run track, well, I happened to be on the same track team as Stanford Route, who went first round to the Oakland Raiders and won state in the 200. I played with a guy named Jonte Buell that went to A&M but ran the 400, and our 4x4, went to state. And I didn't find out until later it was really my dad and our defensive coordinator, who was also our head track coach, that aligned like, hey, this is going to be good for him in the long run. To your point, Jerry, of basketball, I was a rebounder and an enforcer of sorts, right? My best friend was an all-Syntex, basketball player, and he was the one that was the leader of our team. So I had to take a back seat, and not only to a guy that was better than me, but he was younger than me. He was a year behind me, right? And so you learn through the different sports that you're playing. And I mean, I remember my springs were like, we would have basketball practice in the morning. I would have spring ball in the afternoon. I would then go to baseball practice and then go and do my track workout with our defensive coordinator, who was, like I said, the head track coach. So it was like, just kind of a full immersion in really like stretching yourself thin and being, uncomfortable, but doing everything you can to just maximize, the best of your ability. And no, arrow kits, I did not foul out in the first quarter. I was talented. I just didn't have a great jumper or anything. So,
Millwright asked real quick. Millwright asked a good question. Millwright, well, I'll look at this today. Is there one position that makes up the most of the 12% that don't play or that are more specialized? That's a good question. I'll see if I can find an answer this afternoon for you.
Yeah.
I want to credit Marcus for finding this, but a little bragging rights for the Longhorns still, as they have the most players drafted all time now with 412, followed by the Aggies at 334, then Baylor at 272, TCU 238, and then Houston at 200. But a lot of Texas schools on this list. I'm kind of surprised Howard Payne has a lot more than schools like Tarleton, to be honest with you. But Texas, number one, fellas.
Yeah, I mean, it's where you would think it would be, and it's like, Marcus, I mean, one of my funny things this weekend was watching A&M try to troll Texas on the NFL draft, all the while kind of leaving out that the last three drafts Texas is tied with Georgia and Ohio State for the most guys drafted. So it's right where you think Texas should be, and there were some lean years recently for a lot of Texas fans in this regard, for sure. But I think this lead actually may widen slightly in the next couple of years. But I will say this. Rod and I were talking about this last night, Marcus. Because of NIL, we've now entered an era where Texas and Texas A&M can both stay good for a longer period of time, which they've always had a hard time doing, because both of these programs are they're top 5 in NIL. So they're always going to be now loaded with NFL draft picks as long as people are picking the right players. If 6 is your down year, you're loaded. If 7 is a down year, you're loaded, right? We'll see what A&M comes back with next year. Mike Elko said before the season, we have 10, 12 NFL draft picks. The guy was right. So if he says it next year, we probably shouldn't brush it off, or people shouldn't brush it off so easily. But A&M and Texas are both slotted perfectly through NIL to add big numbers to their draft numbers in future years. It's going to happen. And then due to NIL, I mean, SMU and Texas Tech, too, Marcus. They're going to be climbing. Texas Tech's going to be climbing on this list as long as Cody Campbell's around, and SMU's going to be climbing. They will. Both those schools will zip past Houston pretty easily in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I find the victory laps that I see the Red Raiders taking is pretty interesting. But my mom and dad even tried to kind of rib at me a little bit last night. I was like, "What are y'all doing, guys? Like this, we don't need to do this. It's pointless."
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are going to talk about 2027 and the NFL draft here in just a moment. But first, Jerry, if you don't mind, let everyone know about Mint Mobile.
Yeah, every group has someone who insists on doing things the hard way. Some people might say that's me. That friend still paying for a subscription they forgot they had, the one refusing to update their phone because it still works. I used to be that person too, especially when it came to overpaying for wireless. Then I was told to switch to Mint Mobile, and I'm so glad I did. Honestly, I was paying way more with my old carrier for the exact same thing, same coverage, same speed, but just burning money every month. With Mint, it's been smooth, no drop off in quality, and I'm saving a ton. Stop paying way too much for wireless just because that's how it's always been. Mint exists purely to fix that. You get premium wireless you expect, unlimited talk, text, and data, but at a fraction of the price. I use this, and I recommend you try it yourself. There's just no reason to keep overpaying. Ready to stop paying more than you have to? New customers can make the switch today, and for a limited time, get unlimited premium wireless for just $15 a month. Switch now at mintmobile.com/on-Texas all caps. That's mintmobile.com/on-Texas all caps. Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for a 12-month plan. Required $15 equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Go see mintmobile.com.
And I am going to tell everyone this morning about our friends over at Prize Picks, because today's show brought to you by Prize Picks. And I'll say it like this: if you're sitting there watching games with nothing on them, you're leaving entertainment on the table. This just takes everything up a notch, because now every possession matters. Every at-bat matters. You're not just watching, you're invested the whole way through. And there's possibly a little upside for it for you as well. You can pad that wallet, hopefully. And let's see. Sorry about that. It's easy. No deep dives, no complicated setups. You're just picking more or less on player stats, points, yards, hits, assists, whatever you're locked into that night. Build it, submit it, and you're good. Takes maybe a minute. And what I like most is the flexibility. You can ride one sport if you want, or bounce around: basketball, baseball, hockey, golf. Mix it all together. Whatever you're watching, it fits right in. And today, guys, we are mixing and matching here on Coffee and Football. We got former Longhorn Jackson Hayes to have more than half a block shot. The big man has had at least one going all the way back to the first of the month. We're also taking Jarrett Allen to have more than half a steal, as he's averaging 1.6 his last 5 games. And then finally, we're going to jump over to some baseball, taking Cody Clemens to have more than half a total base. The former Horn has reached 6 times in his last 5 games. So we got a burnt orange ticket going on today. And that's the whole deal. You just trust your gut. You lock in your picks, and now every single play actually means something to you. And Prize Picks is available in all 50 states, including right here in the great state of Texas. So if you haven't jumped in yet, now's the time. Download the app. Use code HMA. Play $5, and they're going to give you $50 in lineups instantly. Code HMA. 5 gets you 50. Simple as that. As always, play smart, play responsibly, play Prize Picks. Well, let's take a look. We talked about the 2026 NFL draft. It's in the books, guys. But looking ahead to 27, looks like it could be a historic one for the Longhorns. CBS Sports actually put out a mock draft, and they have 5 Longhorns going in the first round, including the number 1 overall pick, quarterback Arch Manning going to the Jets, edge Colin Simmons going number 4 to the Browns, wide receiver Cam Coleman going 6 to the Raiders, Trevor Gooseby going 10 to the Falcons, and Ryan Wingo 29 to the Ravens. But 4 of the top 10, including the number 1. Marcus, your thoughts?
Man, pairing Colin with Myles Garrett is pretty scary. That would certainly be something. And then, give them kind of another version of that whenever Myles would be ready to hang up. I don't necessarily wish the Raiders on Cam. Gooseby in Atlanta would be pretty solid, and get him back with Bijan. And I think the one that'll end up being talked about the more and more is Wingo there. Like, I absolutely could see him sneaking in the back end of the first round, having, some of that coverage pulled away from him. I think will give him an opportunity to thrive. And then, of course, obviously I left Arch out there. I don't know if I wish the Jets on him either, but at least it looks like they're going out and getting weapons right now, right? So for whoever it is that they're planning on taking next year, they're starting to kind of try to retool some of their offense. And so along with Garrett Wilson, they had some other, solid picks. I think they picked up the Oregon tight end, if I'm not mistaken, as well as the Indiana wide receiver. So I guess it's, the thought of, for some of these teams, position yourselves for next year. But look, I think that's a really impressive list. I also wouldn't be shocked if, just depending on how he plays, somebody like, actually, I was going to say that, Rasheem Biles, which would be a little more challenging, but I was more thinking McDonald potentially sneaking in the back end. But again, this is supposed to be a really loaded draft next year. So the mere fact that you have so many Longhorns already being projected in that manner is certainly impressive.
Yeah, look, I think the likelihood, because all of these drafts changes, Texas will have 4 first-rounders next year. And what I hope, Marcus, is 3 or 4 combined in the second and third round.
Right.
Like, if you can get to 7 or 8 guys drafted in the first 3 rounds, that says a lot, because that means your guys had really good seasons. Mm-hmm. And if your guys had really good seasons, you were in the college football playoff. What happens after you get in, who knows? But it means you've kind of accomplished all the goals possible. And the biggest goal that I'm not going to sit here and predict that stuff. There's way too much injury, all these things that go into it. You could get an injury in the second round of the playoffs and it takes you out next. There's so many things that have to fall into place for you to actually go win it. But if they can have 7, 8 guys drafted in the top 3 rounds of the draft, that means the guys performed really well, and that means you'll be in the college football playoff. And
that's what I was going to say. Yeah, that's
really what I'm looking at, Marcus. Is like, and beyond that, roll the dice, see what happens. But that's kind of what I'm looking at right now with this team.
Yeah. If you have a team that is able to put those type of numbers in the first few rounds, that means more than likely that, at least for Texas this coming season, that they went on a pretty serious run and, maybe only lost 1 or 2 games in the regular season. So,
and Marcus, I want your thought on this. There's going to be a lot of talk about Arch Manning, Dante Moore, quarterback, throughout the season. That's going to be a lot of talk. Hey, who should be the number 1 pick? I'll say this. If Arch in this draft ends up going number 1, I can assure you Texas was in the college football playoff. Because that means you end up going number 1 in this draft, you had a hell of a season and you performed. Because either Dante Moore or Arch, and it is both of their guys. And I know Dante Moore.
Yep. I thought it was me for a second.
Really? Oh, am I out? But
no, you're back.
Yeah. So which of these guys takes the bigger step this year? Look, and I think both teams obviously can be in the college football playoff. But if Arch ends up going number 1, that means he had a hell of a year. And that means he really took a huge step in year 2 as a quarterback in year 2 starting. That means you're in the college football playoff. I don't think you make a college football playoff and Arch isn't, if he's the number 1 pick. I don't think you'll look back and say you didn't make a college football playoff. Because he'll have elevated himself so much as a player.
Well, we got a lot of super chats that we need to get to this morning, so let's just jump right into those. And Jeff Carey here. This has probably been asked many times, but if we lose 3 games, is the season a failure? Depending on injuries, I think we lose 1 game and finish the regular season in the top 8.
Yeah, I mean, I assume you're talking regular season losing 3 games, right? And so, I don't want to say it in a blanket, but I mean, yeah, like you would probably have to view it as that. I don't think you can, unless it's like 3, by the last second play type situation. But that's not what this roster is being built for, and that's certainly not what Arch wants in what, many expect to be his final year. I mean, you even heard him say, hey, I don't really have any plans on coming back to the bowl game there in Orlando, right? So I don't like to be as absolute as, something a success is something a failure, but I don't see how you could really categorize it as anything but that, given, how they played this year or this past season and how they finished. The thought is, for you to consider your season a success, you need to be, back in the playoffs and making a run at it. Obviously, injuries being the great equalizer.
Okay.
Yeah, look, the injury is the great equalizer because if you have injury issues, this schedule will beat you up. I don't care how talented your team is. If you have key injuries, this schedule is going to beat you up. The other thing that's always interesting this time of year for me, Marcus, is none of us went to watch Oklahoma have spring practice or LSU or, the talent gap is probably closer than people want to give it credit for right now. And you may not actually be the most talented team. I mean, we think Texas is a top 5 talented team. I expect them to look like a top 5 talented football team next year. Doesn't mean you're number 1. I mean, doesn't mean you're number 2. That's the thing that is I always go back to around this time of year. Nobody's going out and watching all these spring practices to see what these teams look like. You could go sit down and say, wow, that team really feels like they have it together early on. Well, they may not be quite as talented as somebody Ole Miss last year. And they had a D2 quarterback come in. I mean, he wasn't the starting quarterback on that team. They only had 2 guys drafted. They were really good. They cut down on their penalties from 118th in the country to 54th in the country in 2024, 25 from 24. They made those huge jumps in terms of team discipline that they had to go win. So it's like in Alabama, I was just going through some of these numbers. Alabama, who had talent, obviously they had 9-10 guys drafted. They had talent, but their difference in one game probably in the making the playoff and not, they had the biggest drop in penalties per game from 24 to 25 of any team that was in playoff contention or made the playoffs. They went from 7.4 penalties a game to 4.5. Their team discipline improved to get them to the playoffs. I guarantee you if they were 7.5 penalties a game again last year, they wouldn't have made the playoffs. So yeah. I think that's the thing. We know how talented Texas is, but we also nobody's gone to watch that. Raise your hand if you've gone to watch LSU and compared it. Like, it doesn't happen in the spring, really. So unless you're kind of embedded and you get some special access. So that's always the interesting thing to me. But if the injuries on this schedule would take a toll, that's the one thing I look at. The other thing will be if I want to see Texas have 5.7, 5.8 penalties a game, that would be a dramatic increase from where they were last year, Marcus. If you see a sign like that early in the season, I think you'll know this team. Talent's one thing, but then I think they're doing the things from a disciplinary standpoint on the field that can take them to the next level.
Yeah. And I think the importance too, Jerry, especially of, nailing down that focus early on is, you get your first 3 games at home, and then your very first road game is a trip to Neyland. So you really have to be dialed in, pretty quickly this season to make sure that you're getting off to a fast start, not, continuing to shoot yourself in the foot.
I think we got another super chat from Jeff Carey. He says, how are the Aggies and OU looking this season?
Marcus, that's kind of what I was just getting at. Nobody's really raise your hand if anybody in the chat's gone to watch Oklahoma or LSU. I don't think they have, right? So, or A&M. Look, the one thing I'll say is I think for A&M, their big thing is their offensive line. They took 4 SEC starters out of the portal. It doesn't mean they're all great players because they transferred, and normally the great players don't transfer unless there's a coaching change. But they took 4 SEC starters out of the portal. So they have SEC experience, and I think they're banking on those guys' experience now having another year of experience being big for them, right, on the offensive line. Those experienced SEC guys with SEC size and athleticism. I think they're banking on that. I think a huge part for A&M is Holman Wiggins and Marcel Reed. I mean, they're going to have talent because they're a top 5 NIL program. They're going to have playoff level talent at A&M every year now. But Marcus, what is it going to look like with Holman Wiggins and Marcel Reed? I think that probably tells their story this season, because I think they'll have enough on defense. They lost some guys, but they'll have enough. They have strong NIL. Where you come out on it?
I'm not a Marcel Reed believer.
Right.
I don't say that to be disparaging about the young man. Everything that I've been able to learn about him is he's a quality individual, good person, hard worker, you name it. I just don't trust him to be able to carry them, and I think that's kind of what they need. I don't see how their offensive line can be better than it was last year, and so to me, you combine that with the first time play caller rather. And then again, like I said, with Marcel Reed. So, I mean, I think they'll be good, but I don't think that, if it gets down to it when he, is facing his tougher opponents, which I think their schedule is a little more challenging this year as well. It's not, near what I think we're facing, but it's at least a little bit better than it was last year. So I don't, foresee it that way. OU's a little more challenging to kind of decipher. Again, kind of similar vein. I'm not a Mateer believer, but, he's back, so he has some more experience. And at least he's still with, his same play caller. So they've at least been able to develop a rapport. But I do think that, that defense will still be pretty salty. And so that's something that, you can't really take away from, a Venables coach team. It kind of boils down to, like, if you don't have a guy that's top tier that you believe in at the quarterback position, it's hard for me to see a guy like that be able to carry a team unless everything around him is just elite of the elite. And I don't think necessarily that OU has that. So in a lot of ways, I feel pretty similar about Mateer than I do Marcel Reed.
Yeah, I think what'll be interesting about Oklahoma to me is their young offensive linemen. I think, the two kids from Texas, Foji and Fasusi. Obviously, Fasusi went to Oklahoma because he thought he could start. He made the right call if that's what he wanted to do, 100%. And I think their offensive line, are they able to establish more run game to help Mateer out? Because Oklahoma, Marcus, you were there during that time. Oklahoma had great running backs year after year after year. They have not been there. Everybody's like, well, it's offensive line. Yeah, but they haven't been there from a running back standpoint for a while. I mean, let's see if Trenton Blaylock's a fast guy, or Blaylock's a fast guy going into his sophomore year. The young guy from in-state, Robinson, showed some flashes, but do they have enough in the run game to help Mateer out of the second year starting? And I know the system is what it is, but they still in the SEC. Are they going to be able to effectively run the ball better this year to help Mateer out, help that offense out? Because I think that's going to be big for them. I know they lost guys on defense. I'm not sure I'm with Venables. I just think the guy's a really good defensive play caller, a really good defensive coach, and I think they'll play good enough on defense. I really want to see how they run the football next year against people, because I think that is a big piece for them. Yeah. I really do, because I don't think Mateer can go out and win you all the games. Right, Marcus? So who is going to help? Are they going to be able to provide help for him? A&M had a run game last year until Moss went down. Reed had help. They had a physical run game last year. And I know they played an easy schedule, but they still controlled the game through the run game. Can Oklahoma help Mateer enough out this year?
The last thing, and then we'll leave these Sooners and Aggies alone, but Jerry, did you see that Jaden Ott ended up going to Kansas City? And that's where DeMarco Murray is the running back coach now.
Yep.
That'll be interesting to see how that plays out after how things went at OU. So.
Yes.
All right, guys. Well, we got some more super chats that we're going to get to, a little more conversation this morning or right here in Coffee and Football. But first, Jerry, I'm going to let you tell everyone about our friends over at Vaughn Lane.
Yeah, I love when airlines advertise low fares and then hit you with fees for everything. Want a seat? Fee. Want to check a bag? Fee. Want Wi-Fi that actually connects? Good luck with that. Some carriers are now making you pay $80 or more just for a seat assignment on their cheapest tickets, or you roll the dice at check-in. Real relaxing way to start a trip, right? Not really. Vaughn Lane flips the entire script. You walk into a beautiful hotel terminal, no lines, no TSA, no stress. You board a coach with just 22 first-class leather seats, everything included: Wi-Fi, snacks, beverages, hot towel service, and complimentary meals on select departures. Bags, bring them, no charge. And the internet is Starlink, which means it's fast, reliable, and actually works the whole trip, not just when the plane hits cruising altitude and the stars magically align. Plus, Vaughn Lane just expanded with more departure times between Houston and San Antonio, between Fort Worth and Austin. Vaughn Lane serves Austin, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Fort Worth, Plano, the Woodlands, Nashville, Memphis, Atlanta, and Knoxville. Go to vaughnlane.com and enter promo code OTF26 for $20 off your first ride. What is Vaughn Lane? It's a private jet on wheels.
Thank you, Jerry. I'm going to tell everyone about Cheers as well this morning. Love me some Cheers, because you ever had one of those nights where you're like, I didn't even do anything crazy, but somehow the next morning still hits you? Like, I'm talking a couple of drinks out at dinner, you drink water, you go to bed at a normal time, and you still wake up feeling foggy and having low energy. Well, you need to try Cheers Restore. I'll be honest, I did. I was a little skeptical at first, but I took it after my last drink. I went to sleep. The next morning, I felt normal. It honestly caught me off guard how clear-headed I was. Slept good. I got up ready to roll. And here's how it works. Cheer helps your body process alcohol while you sleep. It supports your liver and helps smooth out that next day feeling. So instead of waking up feeling rough, you feel like you've had way less than you actually did. And the best part is they back it up. Feel at least 50% better or your money back guaranteed. So if you're going to have a drink, do it smarter. Take Cheers Restorer after your last drink or before bed and wake up feeling at least 50% better or, again, your money back. And for a limited amount of time, our listeners get 20% off your entire order when you use code ONTEXAS at cheershealth.com. That's cheershealth.com, code ONTEXAS for 20% off. After you order, let them know that On Texas Football sent you. All right, let's jump back into some more Super Chats. Spank Boogie here. Ohio State played against 28 draft picks and had the hardest Big Ten schedule. A&M played against 46 picks and they had the easiest SEC schedule. Doesn't make sense.
Big Ten is really, really good at the top of their conference, but lacks the depth at the bottom of their conference. They have won the national championships, hat tip, give them credit, but the depth of their conference and talent is just, that's where the SEC, that's what has always made the SEC tough, is everybody you looked at had NFL guys. I mean, that everybody's got an NFL defensive lineman. I mean, just think about what we just said. South Carolina had 5 guys drafted. Kentucky had 5 guys drafted. I mean, like Ole Miss had 2, which is crazy. They went that far. But, I mean, South Carolina had 5 guys drafted. Kentucky had 5. Under Stoops, Kentucky always had defensive guys drafted, almost on all 3 levels in some years. So I think it's just the depth of the league in terms of talent. I think that's what makes it a grind. It's a physically grinding conference. And I know that offenses have changed more, but think about that grinding before more fast-paced spread football even came into the conference. It was a physical beat down in that conference every week, Marcus, for years.
Yep, absolutely. 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
Yep.
Marcus, we got a super chat for you from Jeff Carey. Could you dunk?
I'll answer that yes.
Yeah, I could dunk. I just, like I said, that wasn't like my game. I didn't have a great handle. I wasn't catching the ball on a fast break, but every now and then, if you caught me, I could get up there a little bit. I had some explosions back in the day.
And then Juan Gar here with the super chat. Thank you, Juan. Appreciate it. Says, Blake, how do you think the baseball team road win went? And also, did you see the Ohio State player that got drafted by the Bills? I did not know he had a stutter, and he's done a great job how he handles it. I have a speech problem. I get it. As far as the second part goes, I did not. I knew of the A&M receiver.
That's who I was thinking of, Blake. KC Concepcion.
Yeah,
honestly, that's why I'm rooting for him a little bit.
Yeah. Definitely. But no, I did not know about the Ohio State player. As far as baseball goes, they came out super hot. The one game I didn't get to see because Colt was playing that night. But they came out hot. They handled business against Vanderbilt. Then they came out flat the next night, get blanked, and then get a gritty road win. I mean, I know Vanderbilt's not the Vanderbilt teams of the past, but they're still Vanderbilt. They're still good. They're still very well coached. So you know a series win, you take it, especially in the SEC. I mean, the race at the top is very tight. We actually talked about this on Bases Loaded. The difference between first place and I think ninth place or eighth place is like 2, 3, maybe 4 games at the absolute most. So, you know, a series win really helps you there. Georgia obviously still at the top, followed by A&M and then Texas. Texas 1 game behind A&M at the moment. And we can take a look at the rankings because I know we had some people ask about them. This is from D1 Baseball. Their rankings came out this morning. Texas number 4, A&M number 7. But look, you got Auburn number 8, Mississippi number 10. That series is looming for the Longhorns. And then I think, if memory serves me correctly, I think A&M actually plays Auburn this weekend. Of course, they took care of business against Florida over the past weekend, but it doesn't get much easier for the Aggies, and it doesn't get too much easier for the Longhorns. So we'll see what happens, man. You need Georgia to stumble a little bit, and you need A&M to stumble a little bit, and you got to take care of business. But it's baseball, so who knows?
9 SEC teams. Is that where we're at in the top 25? 10. No, 10. Arkansas, too. 10. 10 out of 25, 40%.
Yeah,
that's a wild conference. Like we all talk, obviously football gets the bulk of the mention, then basketball second, because they had such a great run 2 years ago. And then this year had a lot of teams again in the tournament, number at Sweet 16 teams. But baseball and softball in this conference are off the charts good. It's just crazy how good these baseball and softball are in the SEC. I mean, it really is. I know it's not going to get as much run, but hat tip to going through those conferences every year. It's brutal.
For sure. And shout out to the softball team. Swept the series against, I mean, I know it's Kentucky and they aren't the best in softball, but like you said, I mean, it's tough week in and week out. So, Texas does play Mississippi State this weekend. So you got 4 versus number 10. Then they have Tennessee, who you just hate to see unranked because they have the worst fans in the world, followed by Missouri to finish out the season. So it does get a little bit easier for Texas after this weekend. Meanwhile, I believe A&M, like I said, Auburn, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State. So we'll see what A&M's really made of these last couple of weeks here.
By the way, 18 of those top 25 ranked baseball teams east of the Mississippi River, or east of Texas and east. I mean, you're getting in the SEC territory, then the East Coast, 18 of 25. I've got to be honest, I'm surprised to see Boston College ranked in a baseball poll, but it's not like I know their history. But 18 of 25 are it's pretty interesting that how dominant they are in this ranking. Ooh, that's a good question.
I think that's all of our super chats this morning. So
Dave Atchley's got a good question, Marcus. This is a really good question. Okay. Dave Atchley, Jerry, besides Jared Wiley and Brennan Thompson, who do you think is the biggest transfer to leave Texas and go on to the NFL? Jordan Elliott, definitely maybe the most talented. Jordan Elliott was super talented football player.
Yeah, I mean, I think just by the nature of the players he listed, if you're just saying biggest, like literally Jordan Elliott was the biggest. I don't know if any of them, I mean, not even, I don't know. None of them were huge losses from a team standpoint necessarily. I don't know if there's one. What was the guy that left? And he's had a lot of success in the NFL. He left and went to Miami. He was a DB.
Oh, the safety from Big Spring, Texas.
Yeah. His name's escaping me.
He's committed to Baylor and Texas flipped him.
Right. His name's escaping me, but that would be maybe the only other one that I would add to that list that I can really think of. And then, going forward, you can kind of project, maybe who different guys. Like I still am a big believer in Bo Barnes. And so I could see him having a lot of success at Kentucky if he's able to continue to develop and avoid injury. And then even Nick Brooks, to your point, Jerry, of Alabama's, discipline and being able to, kind of drop their numbers penalty wise year over year. They could certainly, find a way to, keep Nick Brooks in line and his body type and talent would certainly allow for him to be one of those as well.
Antoine, great. Thank you. Adrian
Colbert. That's who I was thinking of. Yep.
I should not have forgot that. I drove to Big Spring to watch him play in high school. I should never forget that one. Thank you, Antoine, for that. I think, Brennan Thompson, man, I I know that one's kind of heated because the Texas the OU thing and everything on social media, but I want to give the kid credit for having some stick-to-itiveness about him, because it would have been easy to give up on football for him. I mean, it's like school 3, final year in college, it works out to the level you end up getting drafted in the 4th round. It was. Yeah. I mean, I'm always really happy for kids that have that stick-to-itiveness and fight. That was a lot of adversity. It doesn't matter if some was self-inflicted or not. That's a lot of adversity that somebody has to go through over multiple years to end up being drafted. He had injuries. He had multiple transfers. Yeah. Probably a lot of self-doubt at points on his journey. But congrats to he's a really good kid. I drove the Spearman for his announcement. People remember that. They've been on OTF a long time. Yeah. Never seen that many birds in my life, by the way. Good kid, man. I mean, and it overcame injuries in high school, overcame some injuries in college. And for him to still hear his name called, man, I like those stories. I don't care where a kid's from, where he goes to school. I just like that. Then when guys face that much adversity on a playing field and fight through it and end up getting drafted, that's pretty cool for him.
Yeah, I think it's certainly good for him. And again, I think my point in saying none of the guys were major losses was just they weren't guys that you solely counted on to be a starter, right? And no even to your point on Thompson, it took 2 more schools to figure it out. So I think sometimes to your point, Jerry, guys just manage to stick it out. Something kind of clicks and they're able to have enough season. And I mean, he always had the speed, like we knew that. Even just watching him in track in high school. And so I definitely think, it's good for him to be able to get into, the NFL and, he'll probably be, kind of a speed merchant there as well. I think he ended up going to the Chargers. Is that where he went? Was it the Chargers? So I could be off on that, but at any rate, good for him and good for all the guys that, made it. I don't wish ill on any of the young men that choose to transfer. I just don't want them to do well when we play against them.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah. So you're right, Marcus. Chargers. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Before we get to our last question or two, I need to tell everyone one more time about our sponsor today, Longhorn Wealth Management Group. And thank you to John Donovan, president of Longhorn Wealth Management Group. John is a proud Texas Exes Life member who served on the Dallas Texas Exes board for 15 years and now has spent the last 4 years helping lead and support the growth of the new Collin County Texas Exes chapter. John also consistently serves his fellow Longhorns as a certified financial planner and the founder of Longhorn Wealth Management Group, the firm he created and dedicated to serving UT alumni and employees as well as their family and friends. And John was very happy to see 6 UT players drafted into the NFL and another 6 get signed as NFL free agents. And to celebrate that success, he's offering all OTF fans a free private financial consultation to show how working with a certified financial planner like John can help you achieve or expand your own financial success by sharing with you the key strategies available to help you maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and ensure your legacy. This is especially timely given that April is Financial Literacy Month. Bet you didn't know that, guys. Scheduling your own free private financial consultation with John by either calling Longhorn Wealth Team at 972-707-4900 or schedule online at longhornwealth.net. And John sends a huge Longhorn 100 winner hook 'em to all the OTF family. All right, well, we got time for just another question or two before we have to get out of here this morning. And how about this from King Me? Is Michael Taft the best walk-on in Texas football history? Jerry, I'll let you start.
Well, technically no, because Ricky Williams, but that's different. That's different. Straight up walk-on, how many other walk-ons have been drafted out that weren't a specialist? I can't think of one. Not since I've been adult or been in this business. I don't think I can think of one. So I think he probably qualifies. I mean, is somebody that knows the history of Texas football in the draft before, like, I was an adult. So, may have a different answer, but I can't think of one. I mean, look, Ricky Williams was technically for a while a walk-on, right? But he's not a walk-on. So that's a technicality. But I was just going back, looking through this. I can't think of one, Marcus. I mean, I'm going through the list right now seeing who's been drafted that was a walk-on. I can't find one. Not in the modern day. Not in the modern era. You got anything, Marcus?
Dang, I muted myself. Blake, I hadn't got me for a while. I was over here talking. At any rate, I don't think I have another answer either, Jerry. I mean, Kyle Shanahan was a walk-on. He's a great NFL coach, but players that were drafted, I can't really think of one either. You know, I'm even trying to think from my teams, and most of those guys that ended up going on to be really great were UDFAs. So, you know, to Big Cat's point there, Peanut, Richard Hightower, you know, you had your guys like Marcus Wilkins, Ahmad Hall, Will Matthews, but again, UDFA guys that found a way to stick, and none of them were walk-ons. So it just I can't think of, you know, really another one that would fit the bill.
Hey, Marcus, I got a question for you before we get out of here. Maybe something you need to think about. And I hadn't asked Rod this either, but I'm going to ask him.
Sure.
On the team when you were playing, had there been a portal, could you have picked a couple of guys that ended up being really good on your teams that might have hit the portal because you knew them and said, man, that might have – it's something to think about. I don't think it come to your mind immediately, but like it was a struggle early. Maybe people like, oh man, y'all, you felt like this guy's not happy here. Is he going to make it? And ended up being a really good player in the pre-portal. I would be interested. I'm going to ask Rod that too. How many guys y'all can kind of think back on and say, man, if we'd had the portal, this guy might not have been on our team?
That's a good question, man. I'm gonna have to think on it because, to your point, I can't necessarily come up with something off the top of my head. I certainly can think of guys that for one reason or another, things didn't work out for them. And it wasn't always like a football reason. I could see, you know, some of those guys going somewhere else and potentially looking for a fresh start. I'm actually sitting in for CJ tonight. He and I are swapping this week. And so I'll be on with Rod and Coach tonight. So I may ask Rod before the show, and that'd be something that we get to thinking on. And I'll save my answer, Jerry, for next Monday. And then whenever you talk to Rod again, maybe he'll have one as
because
well.
Everybody knows the story about VY, right? He was in his car headed home to Houston. Steve McNair wouldn't have let him jump in the portal.
Yeah.
That wasn't going to really happen. But
right.
I bet when you and Rod think back, y'all will be able to come up with a couple of guys and say, yeah, guy probably wouldn't have been here, and he ended up being a really good player for Texas.
Yeah, because I mean, the way it worked for us, right, is like if you wanted to go somewhere else, you sat out a year. If it was in conference, it was like 2 years. So your really only option to play right away was dropping down a level. And so we had a lot of talent that was stacked back then, and everybody just kind of knew like you needed to wait your turn. So really good question. I'm gonna take a look over some of the rosters from my day and see if I can maybe come up with a couple for you.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football, presented by John Donovan and Long Wealth Management Group. We want to thank John, along with Prize Picks, Cheers, Vaughn Lane, and Mint Mobile, all for sponsoring today's show. Of course, thank you all for tuning in as well. The questions, the super chats. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell so you're notified anytime we go live, post content, whatever it may be, and that way you don't miss a thing. And, Jerry, do you know what they don't need to miss later?
Yeah, we have Longhorn live stream. Obviously, tonight we'll be discussing a lot of things. We'll be waiting to see any news. I posted yesterday evening, Jeff and I posted a basketball portal update. I think there's one spot still out there. I think it could take – I'm not sure Texas is in a super big rush there that's remaining on that. We'll see if people have been talking about it in the chat. We'll see if there's any movement on the women's basketball portal this week as well, and we'll be touching on a lot of things around the NFL draft 2027. We'll start to have a little positional breakdown, I think, post-spring coming up soon as well.
Well, we hope you all have an amazing Monday today. Of course, we'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. So for Marcus Myers and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you then.